Now, we're now at the heart of this election campaign. And I know you've heard a lot about our long-term economic plan. I hope some of you can recite our long-term economic plan. Maybe some of you, like me, are even thinking about the long-term economic plan in your sleep. But I want everyone to know, not just that we've got a plan, but why. We're cutting taxes, we're reducing the deficit, investing in roads and railways, funding apprenticeships, backing the NHS, not to complete some national economic test or tick a box, but to build a better country, one where hard work is rewarded, where young people can make the most of their potential, where you get up early and do a shift and you know it's worth your while, where those who put in, contribute and make this country what it is are really rewarded for their efforts. A country where a strong economy means, yes, good jobs and worthwhile careers, but it also means excellent public services, like the hospitals and schools that must be there for your family. This is the Conservative dream, and it comes back to one word: security. The security of a good job, the security of keeping more of your own money to spend as you choose, the security of a home, the security of the public services you need, the security of knowing that the economic sky isn't going to fall in. And there's no more important kind of security than knowing that your family is going to be okay financially, that they're provided for. I remember so well the day my first son was born. And in that moment, when you become a parent, everything changes. Everything you do is for your children. You've got this huge responsibility, not just to love them, but to provide for them. And although my children are still small, I know that never goes away. That when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, that desire to be there for them is as strong as ever. And yes, you want to know that even after you're gone, when you're not on the phone, you're not physically there, you can still provide for them. That wish to pass something on is about the most basic human and natural instinct there is. And that's why for a long, long time, I've wanted to act on inheritance. Now, we've already done some important things. With the Conservatives, people can pass on their ISAs, and soon they'll be able to pass on their pension pot tax-free to their children. And I can tell you today that the next Conservative government would go much further. We will take the family home out of inheritance tax. That home that you've worked for and saved for, it belongs to you and your family. You should be able to pass it on to your children. And with the Conservatives, the taxman will not get his hands on it. You will be able to pass on up to £1 million per couple, completely tax-free, providing for your children and grandchildren, giving families across Britain more security. Because if you've worked hard, if you've done the right thing all your life, we in the Conservative Party back you. Now, here's how it will work. From 2017, we will introduce a new £175,000 family home allowance for people's main residence when it's passed on to their children or their grandchildren. That will take the current tax-free amount any individual can pass on from £325,000 to £500,000. And critically, this is a transferable allowance. So if a husband or wife dies, their allowance can be passed on to their spouse. So for a married couple together, that is up to £1 million. Now, the cost of this policy will be just over £1 billion a year, and we will pay for it by curbing the rising costs of pension relief for high earners, those earning more than £150,000 a year. This is the top richest percent of the tax-paying population, about 300,000 people. This change will mean they get broadly the same tax relief as others, and it's well enough to cover the changes to inheritance tax. And I want to make a few more important points about this announcement that we're making here today. First, this is about fairness. The fact is there are thousands and thousands of people who've been dragged into inheritance tax who were never meant to pay it. Yes, it's right that as a nation we have inheritance tax, and yes, it's right that the wealthiest pay that tax. But no, it was never meant for people who spent their working lives as teachers or nurses or running small businesses. It was never meant for people in modest homes on middle incomes. But that is who has been sucked into paying this tax. Look at the level that inheritance tax is currently set at, £325,000 per individual. Do you know how many homes in our country fall above that amount? It's almost a quarter of them. Now, I wouldn't describe a quarter of the people in our country as super rich. As Dennis Healey, a Labour Chancellor, said in the 1970s, inheritance tax was only meant to be paid for by the very wealthiest. But if you look at the proportion of people who are set to pay this tax, it's clear that more and more people are being dragged into it. Now, in Labour's last year of government, it was 2.6% of people. By 2020, if we left the system as it is, it's estimated that over 11% of those who die would be subject to inheritance tax. That is a fourfold increase in just one decade, with the threat of inheritance tax hanging over far too many families. I think this is wrong, and we're going to make sure it never happens. So with the Conservatives, only millionaires will pay death duties. And what's more, we'll remove the benefit of this new allowance from those who leave behind more than £2 million, because again, we believe that is fair. Now, the second crucial point about this is that it's about rewarding hard work. Every weekday, millions of alarm clocks go off at 6 or 6:30. An army of people get up in the cold and dark, and they sit in the car or on the train, they get into the office, and they work 9 or 10 hours, sometimes more. And they do it day after day, year after year. Why? Because of that deep instinct to provide, to put something in the ISA, to pay off the mortgage, to shore up the security of the family that little bit more. Now, these people aren't oligarchs who have millions stashed away from the taxman. They are decent, hard-working people who just want to save for their children's future. But think of what we as a country have been saying to them. We'll tax you once on your earnings. We'll tax you again when you buy a home. But wait, we're not finished yet. We'll tax you again just after you've died, even though you're far from wealthy. I think that is wrong. As Conservatives, if you've worked hard, we support you. So we're cutting income tax. As Conservatives, if you bought a home, we salute you. So we've cut stamp duty. And if you want to pass on your home, we back you in that. So today we commit to taking the family home out of inheritance tax. And that leads me to the third crucial point. This announcement, once again, shows the stark choice at this election. The plain fact is, the Labour Party always think they know better than you. They think they can make decisions better than you. They think they can spend your hard-earned money better than you. They want to spend more, borrow more, waste more, spend more on unlimited welfare, pat themselves on the back more. But who's going to pay more? You will pay more in higher taxes. Because Labour just don't get or respect the instincts that millions of people have to put in the hours, to get that promotion, to swap the old car for a bigger car, to change the smaller home for the bigger home, to get on in life. We Conservatives are the opposite. We see someone working hard to build a good life, and we say, we'll cut your taxes. We see savers who've made sacrifices, and we say, we'll let you pass that on. So this is the Conservative commitment to you. Your family home taken out of inheritance tax. Your right to pass on your hard-earned nest egg tax-free to your children and grandchildren. Death duties only for millionaires. We are building a Britain where those who work hard and do the right thing get rewarded for their efforts. And today, with more people in work, more people owning homes, more people running businesses, more people doing apprenticeships, we can see that we're getting there. So for everyone who wants a more secure future, I say, let us stick to the plan. Let us see this through. Let's keep on building something better for our children and our grandchildren and for generations to come. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. I've got some broadcasters to take some questions from, and then I'm going to go and meet with the regional media to talk about Cheltenham and Gloucestershire and local issues, and then I hope we'll be able to come back and have a cup of coffee and chat to all of you. So let's take the questions from the broadcasters. We'll start with James Mates from ITV.
Prime Minister, might this not be seen, almost by definition, as another tax cut for those who are already comfortably off?
I think this is the right thing to do because there's a very simple and noble principle that all of us believe, which is wanting to pass something on to future generations. And this is about saying to people who've worked hard, who've done the right thing, who've saved, who've bought a home, who've invested in that home, that if you've done that, that home belongs to you. It's for you to pass to your children. It's not the taxman's. So I think this is absolutely right. And the figures show now, with the current threshold at £325,000, this is a tax that is really now being paid by people who aren't super rich. It's people who've worked hard, often on modest incomes, with modest homes, and we're saying to them, we back you, it's your home, you can pass it on to your children. Anushka from Sky.
Prime Minister, I met a voter today who said he backed the Conservatives in 2010 because of an inheritance tax policy that was then lost in coalition negotiations. I know you're going for a majority, but if you fall short, is this a policy that will be protected?
Well, this is one of the seats, the 23 seats we have to win to make sure we have a Conservative majority government, and I'm confident that we can do that. And the announcement today is also fully costed and fully paid for, and I think that's important too. But the policy couldn't be clearer, and the ambition is so clear that the family home is yours. You've worked hard for it, you've saved, you've put in the effort, you've put in the hours, you paid tax on the income. You paid tax when you bought the house. You shouldn't have to pay tax again when you die and when you want to pass that house on to your children and grandchildren. That's the simple principle. Now we've got Gavin from the BBC.
Prime Minister, won't this disproportionately benefit people living in the southeast? And also, do you think this is the priority when you have already said there will have to be further welfare cuts in a future government? Is this really the priority?
I think this will be good for people right across the country because they back, I believe, the simple principle that if you've worked hard, you've saved, you've bought a home, you've invested in that home, that should be yours to pass on, not to have to give to the taxman. And as the figures show, there's a danger if we don't act on inheritance tax that more and more families, not rich families, will have to pay that tax. And I think that would be wrong. This is fully costed, fully explained, fully set out, and I think it'll be widely backed across our country. Finally, I think we've got Robin from Points West.
Prime Minister, this is your third visit to the West in 2 weeks, your second to a Lib Dem seat that, on paper at least, it seems relatively safe. Are you trying to wipe the Lib Dems out of their heartland?
Well, To misquote what's at St Paul's Cathedral, if you seek an answer, look around. Look, I'm fighting a very strong and energetic campaign. I was looking at the BBC website today, for which thank you very much, showing I've done thousands more miles than the other party leaders in this election. And I will keep coming back and back to the West Country, among other parts of our country, to make a very straightforward argument, which is we are only 23 seats short from that overall majority. And I think the country now wants a strong, decisive and accountable government. The coalition did some very good work. It was a strong government. It really helped to sort out our economy, but now is the time for the Conservatives to take forward that work. And you do get greater accountability with a single-party government. People know what goes into the manifesto. That is what will be delivered in government. Only 23 seats, and this is one of them, stand between Britain and that majority government. And the alternative, as Alex was saying, increasingly looks like a Ed Miliband government propped up by the Scottish National Party, not only implementing Labour's programme that would wreck our recovery, but adding to that even more borrowing, even more taxes, even more unlimited welfare, and weaker defence at the behest of the Scottish National Party. Now, if you want to avoid that calamitous outcome, it's no good voting Lib Dem. They're saying they could work with Labour. It's no good voting UKIP. That's a backdoor to a Labour government. It's no good voting Labour. Then you definitely get Ed Miliband. The only way to stop this calamitous outcome is to vote Conservative, including in seats like this, so that we can give Britain the strong, decisive and accountable government that we need.